I'd like to welcome you all here today. Thanks very much for coming. Friends, colleagues, elected representatives, Susan. We're privileged, happy. I'm very delighted to be here today. This is the culmination of a number of years of work, which initially started 10 years after the Visitor Centre opened. There was an invitation to artists to submit proposals for an arts commission for the Visitor Centre, which was part of the OPW Percentage for Art scheme. And it's a collaborative project between National Parks and Wildlife Service, the OPW, and Mayo County Council Arts Office. So it was a two-stage process initially. The initial stage was an invitation to artists to submit proposals, which they did. And then there was a selected panel, and from that we shortlisted a number of artists based on their proposal to us, and the final elected artist with her proposal was Susan Mannion. It was, as I said, a collaborative project which was, I suppose, interrupted quite significantly by COVID. But in fairness to Susan, she was brilliant. She worked through it. And has delivered this wonderful project, this wonderful art piece, Under Darkening Skies, which I hope you'll all, well, personally I see it not only under darkening skies, but also under blue skies, under grey skies, under every type of sky that we are so lucky to have here in Ballycroy and in Mayo and in Wildlife National Park. A few thanks to the people who've been involved. Initially, I suppose, with the OPW, Jackie Moore, who's one of the main people working in their arts section, the public art scheme, and also to Aoife O'Toole, who's here today with Mayo Arts Office, who really has been very important for us, holding our hand, guiding us, and pushing the project forward to fruition. And also very important, and the main driver also behind the project is Margaret Flaherty, our supervisor guide, who really has pushed the project forward too and has been instrumental in getting us here today. So I want to thank Mags very much for her input and her help. What we'll probably do is just introduce, I'd like to introduce Susan Mannion. She's our artist here today, who's worked tirelessly on this project. Susan is an artist of international accreditation and renowned internationally. She's a printmaker and an enamel artist and based in Boyle, and also has academic credentials, if I'm right, in terms of archaeology and medieval architecture. So she's brought all of that together, as well as her inspiration and her love of the landscape and the natural world, to produce this beautiful artwork for us today. So I'm going to invite Susan up to explain and introduce you to her work of art. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to everybody for coming to this launch of the artwork Under Darkening Skies. This large-scale enamel on steel sculptural piece came about during a period of great uncertainty, commissioned right at the start of coronavirus pandemic in March 2020. Within a matter of weeks, the world became a very different place and the future was a little uncertain. The visual for this artwork developed as I thought about the tiny spaces that we were confined to move within, the constant 2-kilometre walks. We looked at nature and we reconnected with it, and of course we had the open skies above. We all drew strength from the world around us. We slowed down and observed. It made me recall a time when I saw the Milky Way for the first time. Not as a picture in a book or on a screen, but really see it in all its majesty, crossing the sky at night on a cold winter's evening. This experience was not that long ago, only 2013. Up to that point, due to light pollution and the various places that I lived in, I had not seen the Milky Way. This was the inspiration for the artwork, the Milky Way image born out of a period of uncertainty, hence the title Under Darkening Skies, but also an acknowledgement of the need for space and to see the great expanse of the night sky above. That is why places like Wild Neffen National Park are so important, protecting our landscape, but also giving us the opportunity to realise that there is so much more that can be missed if we do not protect and show everyone the value of earthly landscape, but also the skyscape above us. I wish to thank the Commissioning Committee for having faith in me to undertake this commission. And I thank Mags Flaherty and the staff of the Ballycroy Visitor Centre for all their support, and to everyone that took part in the questionnaire and shared their experiences of this park. I would also like to thank AJ Wells on the Isle of Wight for the delivery and installation of the artwork on the wall. I wish this centre a belated happy 10th birthday, and may it serve for many years to come so that many people can enjoy the night skies and see the Milky Way. Thank you and happy solstice.
Thanks, Susan. I'd like to invite Dennis Strong, now Divisional Manager, to say a few words, please, with National Parks. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue, and welcome guests. Yeah, I think in this particular case, I can't stand before you here claiming any credit for anything that has gone on with regard to the Dark Sky Park, and indeed this beautiful piece of art by Susan, as my job was really made easy by the team of people that's involved in the centre and in the national park itself. I think it's very fitting and it's appropriate that we're here on the summer solstice celebrating this piece of beautiful art, Susan, and I want to commend you on this, because I've an interest in metalwork myself, so I've only some idea of the kind of work that goes into producing something like that. The Dark Sky Park designation and getting its International Gold Tier Award accreditation in 2016, it does not happen by accident. A lot of work goes into delivering something like that, and I think that it's also very fitting that the dedicated people who were involved in bringing this to fruition and bringing it forward. And I want to thank, I know it's always dangerous name checking people, but in this case I have to, because our former colleague, Bríd Calhoun, she was a head guide here, she's now working, still with us in Killarney National Park. Bríd was here from the very outset. Sue also mentioned Margaret Flaherty, who's here as supervisor guide. And of course Susan Callahan here, and William Cormican, regional manager, who will be joining us, I hope, later. They've put in a Trojan amount of work behind the scenes. And it's that behind the scene work that on a day like this needs to be recognised. But finally, I just want to acknowledge Georgia Macmillan. I've referred to Georgia more than once as the dynamo of energy that drove this project. She certainly educated me about the dark skies and encouraged me to look up a bit more than I had been doing, because born and reared in the west of Ireland, I see the Milky Way on a regular basis, and I took it for granted, but not anymore, thanks to Georgia. And I want to commend you, Georgia, and your partner Jed, because again you opened all our eyes to what was above us. We were so busy looking down under the birds and habitats regulations, we forgot to look up. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you especially, Georgia. So that's it. And Georgia, of course, also was instrumental in the establishment of the Friends of the Mayo Dark Skies. And I think that's it's a very fitting, and it's also a model of engagement for dealing with the wider community and bringing in people to support initiatives like this. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dennis. And you're mentioning under the Dark Skies, Mayo Dark Sky Park, Wild Neffen National Park. There's all, I suppose, tiers and parts of this place that we're attracted to and that we find inspiration from. And so with that in mind, I'd like to invite Sean Lysett here to say a few words. Sean has been inspired by this whole Erris region. He's a poet, and I like the way Michael Viney described you as a bard and a Sherpa and a chronicler of, I suppose, the beauty and the landscape that is here. And we're so, I suppose, lucky to be here in Wild Neffin National Park. So Sean, you're a friend, a good friend, as well as everything else. So I'd like you to come up and say a few words, please.
I'm also an angler, by the way, and I'm kind of thinking that sometimes it's a big fly like that, a big fluffy black fly that might tempt a sea trout up out of the depths. Roine úsle chuirm fáilte roimh go léir go bhaile cruach agus an anad cuairtóirí sa fáirt náisiúnta. Agus tá riméad orm inniu an ócáid seo a chéalúra agus muid ag nachta séthar nua Susan Mannion. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Ballycroy and the Visitor Centre, and I'm delighted to mark this occasion when we are, if not unveiling, somehow inaugurating Susan Mannion's work. As has been said, this set of enamelled panels was commissioned by the Office of Public Works in conjunction with Parks and Wildlife Service and Mayo County Council as part of a commitment to provide, quote, funding for public art features on or in state-funded construction projects. And as I'm repeating, I hope you'll forgive me, this image of the Milky Way is perfectly aligned to the designation of the National Park as a dark skies park. And the designation also carries with it some ambitious future plans for an observatory and a planetarium. This work itself is on a large scale, and it somehow befits the setting in Erris with its famously vast horizons. The subject also takes us outward to an even vaster night sky. The medium that the artist uses is a process of enamelling which involves firing in a furnace to several hundred degrees Celsius. And it produces a finished product that should stand up to the harsh conditions of the area of wind, rain, sea spray, and this unmediated light. And I'd recommend anyone who's curious to know more about the technique, if you go to Susan's website, you will find an excellent 5-minute YouTube video from the artist herself explaining the stages in the process. So I'm particularly keen to celebrate a major piece of artwork finding a permanent home on a public building. And in this particular instance, the public art ultimately derives from a decision to establish a national park in the Ballycroy, Nafanbeg area. So what seems to have begun in the area of nature conservation and landscape protection leads on to other things with the Ballycroy Visitor Centre as the vehicle. From the very start, the Visitor Centre and its surrounding walk reached out towards wider culture with signposts to writers and topographers who had witnessed the area. Then we have wickerwork sculptures of animals and a more recent set of wood figures of birds and animals, all of this linking the natural world to creativity and image making. This creative work is also represented at Ballycroy Visitor Centre in the artwork at the Stronach Gallery and in the beautiful tapestries by Elizabeth Mulcahy in the foyer. Recently, my wife Jessica and I were shown into the exhibition space by Michael Chambers, where we were invited to view many organisms that were taken from the dipping pond here, and a number of organisms as well under microscope, such as the leaves of sundew, sphagnum mosses, and other small aquatic organisms from the ponds. And this, for me, is a case how science leads us into wonder, and wonder leads to the imagination. And at that point, we engage with creativity. And this creativity doesn't need some concoctions of fantasy, but it can be based on the wonder of the living world, on our universe, which we can see in the unpolluted night skies of Mayo, as represented here in Susan Mannion's enamelled panels of the Milky Way. The Visitor Centre is a fitting location for this work of the imagination. It has become a resource, a thriving and expanding resource. We have a classroom space which has just been built beside the larger second pond. And this pond has already been colonised by aquatic life and will be a valuable teaching resource in the future. The cafe here, Ginger and Wild, has become a favoured meeting place for many, as Jessica and I know from many pleasant hours here over coffee and pastries, meeting old friends and making new. And I'd finally like to evoke not only Susan's large work here, but the smaller pieces as well, including those beautiful copper cups which are on display in the Stronach Gallery here. And it reminds me of Tim Robinson's reference to the heritage of the Gaeltacht in his account of the Aran Islands. He compared the culture of the Gaeltachts to tiny little cups that were the bearers of a precious heritage from one generation to the next. So I think it's not only in the large scale work, but it's also in Susan's case in the smaller work that we see value and wonder. And this is also very evident if we go out on the walk here around the centre on a day like today, with the wonder of the flowers which are now coming into bloom. Many of the world's wonders are on a very small scale, such as you will witness on the walk. And as Edmund Wilson says, every species, flower, bird or animal is a masterpiece. And it is with that sense of creative wonder that I am happy to inaugurate Susan Mannion's great work here at Ballycroy. Fógrim an Sehar, Sholta, agus Guim Gachra an Aliantor sa Tauchi, gur míle maith agaibh.
Thank you, Sean. Very inspiring words, and just goes to show the importance of our natural world in terms of inspiration for our oral art, our visual art, music, our culinary art. All of these things. It's not just about protection of species and habitats that we can get quite caught up in, especially in MPWS, but it's about the protection of the landscape of our sky, and with that, the inspiration for art and the response that we have to it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody here today, and particular thank you, Susan, for all your time, your effort, and artistic ability and inspiration that you have devoted to this project. And I'd like to invite you all now up for a cup of tea and some cake inside. Thank you. Thank you for coming.